This is Dejobnik, your command post for clarity and perspective.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Israeli government spokesman Alon Levy. This is day 103 of the October 7th war. We begin with our latest figures. IDF fatalities since the start of the October 7 massacre have risen to 527. That's up by 3 since yesterday's update. The people of Israel mourn the deaths of Master Sergeant Reserves Zecharia Pesach Haba, Sergeant Major Reserves Yair Katz, Sergeant Major Reserves Noam Ashram. We send our condolences to their families and loved ones and salute them for their heroism and ultimate sacrifice. An important clarification on the hostage crisis. We've seen many reports circulating of around 240 abducted, so here are the official figures. On October 7th, Hamas abducted 253 people. 253 people, that's the official figure. That's on top of the 4 it was holding since before the war. Of those 253, 132 are still trapped in Gaza, and of those 132, 27 have been killed in captivity, with Hamas still holding onto their bodies. There is still 1 missing person from the massacre. Of the 253 hostages abducted on October 7th, 121 have been extricated from Gaza. That's 5 before the hostage release pause. Then during the hostage release pause, another 81 Israelis and 24 foreigners. In addition, another 8 hostages were murdered by Hamas and their bodies have been retrieved. And of course, the 3 hostages who were tragically and erroneously killed by our own forces. In total, Hamas has murdered at least 34 hostages in captivity. We demand the immediate and unconditional release of all the hostages whose lives are in imminent danger on account of their perilous health situation, the physical, psychological, and sexual abuse they continue to endure, as has been widely reported, and the very real risk that Hamas will execute them, as it has so many others. Just yesterday, Kibbutz Be'eri announced that hostages Yossi Sharabi and Itai Sversky, who were forced to appear in a sick propaganda video with Noah Argamani, and whose families Hamas tortured with a demented public guessing game about their fate, were murdered in captivity. Moving on to the next subject, on Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's instructions and pursuant to the director of Mossad's agreement with Qatar on the provision of medicines to the Israeli hostages, we're expecting the transfer of medicines to the Israeli hostages trapped in the Hamas terror dungeons for the first time since they were abducted over 100 days ago. As you will have seen in the extensive medical report provided by the Hostages Family Forum, at least 1/3 of the hostages have chronic illnesses and need regular medication. Many others were wounded during their brutal abduction, perhaps most notably Hirsch Goldberg-Polin, whose arm was blown off, his left arm, from the elbow down when Hamas threw grenades into a rocket shelter, and many others are ill from harsh captivity, including mental and physical torture, and of course the widely reported sexual abuse. We demand that those medicines, delivered far too late, reach their destinations, and repeat our demand for Red Cross access so that they can report on the hostages' health conditions and ensure adequate medical treatment. This morning, we received another reminder of the Islamic Republic of Iran's malign influence and persistent efforts to destabilize our region and cause bloodshed. Today, the IDF and Shin Bet announced the elimination of Abdallah Abu Shalal, the head of terror infrastructure in the Balata camp in Nablus, who was planning an imminent large-scale terror attack and was responsible for previous attacks. Under his leadership, the terror infrastructure in Balata received funding and guidance from Iranian sources who are in cooperation with terrorist headquarters in the Gaza Strip and beyond. This comes after the Shin Bet released video from the interrogation of a Palestinian Islamic Jihad unit commander who revealed that PIJ operatives were given military training in person in Iran, including shooting training. The latest updates on humanitarian figures. Yesterday, 218 humanitarian aid trucks were inspected by Israel and transferred onward into the Gaza Strip. That's 99 through Nitzana and then Egypt's Rafah crossing, and 119 via the Kerem Shalom crossing, more entering directly through Israel than indirectly via Egypt. 150 of those trucks contained food. In addition, the Gaza Strip received a delivery of 4 tankers of cooking gas and 2 tankers of fuel for the operation of essential infrastructure. We repeat, all international actors wishing to see more aid enter Gaza should simply send more aid, because there is still plenty of excess capacity at the Israeli crossings. Over the last few days, we've successfully facilitated the delivery of 139 trucks carrying food donated by the World Food Programme, arriving via Jordan through Israel. On the health front, we expect additional field hospitals to be up and running in coming days. These have, of course, been necessitated by Hamas's strategic militarization of Gaza's existing hospitals, using them as military bases with the tragic and tacit complicity of UN agencies. Just yesterday, we received a reminder of that with the launch of projectiles from inside the Nasser hospital in grave breach of international humanitarian law. Over 340 medical staffers have entered Gaza to bolster medical efforts there. Returning to the food front, central and southern Gaza currently have 11 bakeries producing over 2 million pita breads a day inside the Gaza Strip, of course pursuant to all the international aid that continues to flow into the Gaza Strip with excess capacity at the Israeli crossings. That's it for today's update, and we'll now take your questions. Thank you.
So the first question comes from Dan Williams of Reuters. Number one, how far does Israel want Hezbollah withdrawn from the Lebanese side of the northern border? Would a shorter distance than the Litani River, for example, 7 kilometers, be acceptable? Number two, is Israel also demanding an expanded international peacekeeper force in southern Lebanon? How many personnel? And number three, is Israel interested in seeking a deal to demarcate the land border with Lebanon at this time?
Dan, on the situation with Lebanon, what I can say is this. UN Security Council Resolution 1701 lays out the international legal framework governing southern Lebanon. That framework is accepted by both Israel and the government of Lebanon. Now, Hezbollah has rendered it effectively null and void through its systematic aggression, especially since October 7th. Needless to say, if that resolution were fully implemented, that would help to allay concerns of a repeat October 7 on a much larger scale on the Lebanese border. Israel believes there is still a diplomatic window of opportunity. There can be no doubt that Hezbollah can no longer maintain its internationally unlawful presence on the Israeli border, risking a repeat October 7, of course, with the continued shelling of homes in Israel, aggression that has caused the forcible displacement of 80,000 Israelis. We welcome the UN Secretary General's call for the implementation of UN Security Council Resolution 1701 in his remarks. That resolution demands that Hezbollah back off, as we have been consistently calling for.
Next two questions I'm going to combine from Lior Soroka of the Washington Post. And then I'm going to have Mark Anderson's, actually, and together with JNS's David Isaac. So that's Mark Anderson of AFP as well as JNS's David Isaac. Together, these are questions about the supply of medicines. Can we confirm, says Mark Anderson, that Israel has agreed not to carry out security checks on medicines entering Gaza? That question has also come from JNS's David Isaac. And the follow-up question from Leo Soroka, when will the medicines arrive in Gaza, and how much is expected to be distributed to the hostages and Gazans?
We are, of course, demanding that all the medicines reach their intended addresses. As we said, 1/3 of the hostages trapped in Gaza have chronic medical conditions. On top of them, those who were wounded during the October 7 massacre, and of course the health effects of over 103 days of captivity with psychological, physical, and sexual abuse. The fact that it has taken so long to get medicines into Gaza for the hostages is a reminder of how sick, twisted, and utterly demented Hamas's strategy has been, the deliberate and sadistic pain and cruelty that it has subjected those hostages to. We will be watching closely and demanding that they reach their destination. This is, of course, only the merest, most basic of demands. We also demand Red Cross access so that we can get proper confirmation of life, confirmation of their medical condition, and make sure they receive adequate medical treatment. That is, of course, top of our minds given the horrific testimonies we've heard from survivors of Hamas captivities about ways they were operated on by vets and had feet stitched back on the wrong way around. And of course, we continue to demand their immediate and unconditional release. As for questions on the specific modalities of the entry of humanitarian aid into the Gaza Strip, the correct address for that is COGAT, which oversees the operations of the border crossings.
Joel Pollack of Breitbart News asks, what is Israel's response to the repeated insistence of the Biden administration on the creation of a Palestinian state, something 2/3 of the Israeli public now opposes, and which would reward Palestinians for terror of October 7th?
These are long-term political questions that, of course, remain subjects of acute political controversy inside Israel. But if there is one thing that is a matter of consensus in the Israeli public from left to right, it's that whatever our vision of peace, there can be no room for Hamas there. And so we are focusing now on the immediate goals of destroying the Hamas terror regime and bringing back the hostages. Those are the declared goals of this campaign as dictated by the War Cabinet, and that is what we are focusing on at the moment.
And one last question for today from Melanie Lidman of AP. Jordan has reported that Israeli strikes hit the Jordan Field Hospital, seriously wounding a Jordanian doctor. Reports from the kingdom say that because the Israeli army knows the location of the hospital, this is a diplomatic incident. Any response to Jordan from Israel, not about the strike itself, but about the diplomatic implications?
Melanie, I'm not familiar with this specific case, and I would refer your question to the IDF. It is important to note the context, of course, that Hamas has a deliberate and systematic strategy of using not only human shields, but using civilian infrastructure as human shields, operating from inside and underneath hospitals, most notably with Shifa, the Radwan Hospital, the Nasser Hospital, where they've just fired projectiles. The list goes on. And they're able to do so because they enjoy the tacit complicity of UN agencies, of the World Health Organization, of the Red Cross, that have absolutely nothing to say about Hamas militarizing hospitals and therefore find themselves complicit with its human shield strategy. And it is important to remember, again, not familiar with the specifics of this claim, but whenever claims arise about potential Israeli military activity in the vicinity of hospitals, to understand that Hamas has been doubling down on its human shield strategy and deliberately embedding itself within medical facilities in the expectation that that will give it immunity and shield its fighters and military infrastructure. And that strategy must, of course, be top of the minds of anyone reporting on such allegations within the Gaza Strip. Be conscious of the strategy that Hamas is using and the way that Hamas operates out of medical facilities in an attempt to manipulate international media coverage as well. Just be careful of how Hamas is trying to play you. Okay, that's all. Thank you very much, everyone. We will update you on the timing of tomorrow's briefing. And of course, all please keep safe. Thank you very much.
Thanks for watching. If you're eager for more, click right here or dive deeper at www.dejobnik.com. Your insights matter to us, so if there's a topic you're curious about, drop a comment below. Don't forget to like, share, and hit subscribe to stay updated with our latest content. Until next time, stay informed and inspired. This is Dejobnik signing off.